Hello and welcome to the Woven Knot Crochet, the Hand-Mind Connection. My name is Samara and I'm actually launching my YouTube channel today on International Granny Square Day. So it was a perfect day to do that because I'm going to tell you a little bit about my channel and tell you why I think Granny Square Day was a good day to do it. So like many of you, I'm an avid crocheter. Some of you may be beginners, and I really welcome beginners because I really am happy that you're taking on this wonderful hobby, and I'd like to support you with that. And for those of you seasoned crocheters, I hope you find something in this channel that is helpful for you. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I learned how to crochet when I was about 9 or 10 years old from a good friend, and I'm going to give her a shout out. Thank you, Debbie. You have no idea what a wonderful coping mechanism and outlet for creativity that you gave me. So Debbie and I were in 4th grade, and on Saturday afternoons we would go to Woolworths. I don't know how many of you remember Woolworths, but they had a great yarn section and some wonderful, basic crochet hooks. And we would spend our little bit of allowance, which money of course went a little further in those days, on a skein of yarn and a crochet hook, and then spend Saturday afternoon playing around, chaining, doing basic single double crochets. And then one day we got brave, and she knew more than I did, but she got me started on a granny square. So that was the very first thing that I actually made. And then we got ambitious and decided to make a big granny square blanket. So that was actually the very first real project that I did. And it was something like this. You start off with a granny square and then you just keep going and going and going and going. So this is, a baby blanket work in progress, a whip that I have. And, it's always a great meditative project. So I'm going to talk a little more about granny squares, and I'll share some of my favorite granny square projects. I'll tell you a little bit about why I started this channel. So I am a mental health professional, and most of my work focuses on depression and anxiety, although I'm not going to be giving out mental health advice on this channel, and in no way am I suggesting that hobbies or crochet are a substitute for seeking mental health care when you need it. Seeing a professional mental health clinician in your community or online. I am hoping in this channel to talk a little bit about what crochet means to me and what crochet may mean to you, and as an extra tool, as a self-care tool, a way to empower you to manage stress in addition to other care that you may be seeking if you do need it. So I just thought that would be an interesting thing to dialogue about. I want to hear from you and your comments, and hopefully at some point some live discussions about the meaning of crochet and your crochet journey in terms of managing stress. We are living in a very stressful time, not that others before us hadn't. There's always been stressors of one kind or another, but the last few years, certainly for those of us who have felt some isolation or who've experienced some losses or just getting through day-to-day life, it's been particularly difficult for many people. So I was hoping in this channel that we could explore different ways to engage mindful practice around crochet. I can share with you some patterns that I found particularly helpful. The Granny Square is actually one of them. I do have an Instagram account, the Woven Knot Crochet, and I just posted some of my favorite granny squares, and there are hashtags around granny square therapy and crochet is therapy, where a lot of people share the types of projects that help them get into a mindful state, help them feel a sense of peace and calm. And the evidence base around it in terms of research is actually also building. So in addition to people sharing their personal experiences, there are folks in the mental health community and research community are looking at the benefits of repetitive movements and hand movements and hobbies in helping us deal with day-to-day stress and helping us get through difficult times. Again, as an adjunct, if you do need more help, than just normal everyday coping mechanisms. So in any event, as you can see, I love yarn. I don't have to justify it to you all. Whoever's watching this is probably a yarn lover, and I have way more yarn than I need, but I'm sure many of you do too, and that's okay. It's kind of a innocent vice in my opinion. And so we'll be celebrating yarn here as well. And then for those of you who are knitters or embroiderers, cross stitches, I would love to hear from you too in terms of how those hobbies may be helpful. But of course, we're primarily focused on crochet because that's what I know how to do. And by no means an expert in crochet. I would consider myself sort of an intermediate crocheter, but my skills have definitely advanced over the last few years. I kind of left crochet by the wayside after, the age of 12 or so, the teen years, and then of course, college, marriage, kids, all kinds of things that, we women focus on. And then, later on with empty nests and things, we kind of maybe revisit our hobbies. That's been my journey anyway. That may be different for you, but I took it up again in 2017 after a surgical procedure, which I was told to take it easy, and I have a hard time sitting still and watching television. I needed something to do with my hands, and I went to Joann's and I bought a bunch of yarn, and I started looking on YouTube, and I was amazed at the body memory. It came back, especially, the basic stitches. And so my very first project was kind of a baby blanket, and I have to thank Melanie Ham for that. As those of you who may follow Melanie Ham, you know that she was a wonderful YouTuber, crochet and quilting, and she did pass away this year. So I do want to just say how much I appreciated her, and I would really encourage you to support her channel, and indirectly, you're supporting her family during this difficult time. So we'll put a link to her baby blanket video. It's a great beginner project in the description box. And then I discovered some other YouTubers. I'll give shouts out to them along the way at different episodes. And as time has gone on, I've made several of their patterns, and I'll definitely mention the ones that I found to be the most stress relieving and the most meditative, so that you can go directly to those videos if you'd like to check those out. Today I'll talk a little bit about some favorite Granny Square patterns and YouTubers that I followed who have opened up some Granny Square possibilities for me. So, but let's talk a little bit about the Granny Square. What makes it meditative? What makes it relaxing? For me, it is the fact that once you know how to make a Granny Square, and there are different ways of doing it, but the basic Granny Square, it is repetitive in such a way that you can kind of, let your mind wander, and then you can play with different colors and textures, and you learn a lot of skills by changing colors, by, kind of playing with Granny Squares, and a lot of your basic skills come to bear on that. And there's something about the contrasting colors that makes it so fun. And you can do quick projects, when you're not feeling like you want to commit to a huge pattern, you can make a square or make several squares, and then, at some point you'll do something with them. But at that moment, you just kind of want to do something quick and simple. And so once you know the basic Granny Square pattern, you can kind of indulge in small or big projects. So let's talk a little bit about Granny Squares. When I talk about small, I mean small, like really small. And I like mixing solids and variegated yarns, so you may find that interesting. sometimes a little pattern like this, a little daisy granny square, if you need an extra pin cushion, and I'm always losing my crochet hooks on the couch and always misplacing my needles. So sometimes I just whip myself up an extra pin cushion. You can stuff it with scrap yarn or polyfill. You can line it, which would be a better thing to do. I didn't do that here. In celebration of Granny Square Day, I am wearing my Granny Square earrings that I made. This is just a simple, basic Granny Square using crochet thread and a very tiny needle. And I'll show you how to do that at one of these episodes. And then I stiffen it with a little bit of stiffener solution. So that's always fun. And then I'll show you some other little granny squares. So these are like little daisy granny squares that you can connect to make, you know, doll blanket or baby blankets, depending on the different kind of yarn you use. And the puff stitches versus the cluster stitches, you can get a different like dimensional look based on the yarn, and also just the petals that you're using if you're making flower granny squares. I always find that interesting. This is a really interesting and different granny square pattern that I came across in a book about crochet to calm, and I'm going to share that link with you and talk a lot more about that book over different episodes because I find it extremely helpful. And then let's talk a little bit about yarn and granny squares. So again, you can use puffy yarn to make very different looking type of granny square even with the same pattern. So sometimes that's fun just to make a puffy yarn. You can use even like shawl in a ball to make very loose granny squares. This is Lion brand shawl in a ball. The difference in its stiffness and texture. This right here is just a little doll blanket I made recently. I joined with a single crochet border, so it kind of has a raised border on one side and flat on the other. I love this color combination. I'll talk to you a little bit about this yarn and where I got it. And it is Stylecraft Special DK, and I just love the colors it comes in. And I'll link you to the Ophelia Talks Crochet website where she sells these yarn packs, and I just love her colors that she picks out and some of the patterns that I'll share with you. In fact, why don't I do that now? So in this poncho that I made, you can see that you can make these small little granny squares, kind of put them aside, play with different colors. This is also Stylecraft Special DK, which is from UK. And then, you know, granny squares can be incorporated into wearables really nicely. This pattern was from the Ophelia Talks Crochet YouTube channel and website where she sells the yarn packs as well. And this is called the Ophelia Square, so it's her original pattern. So please check that out. And then some of my other favorite granny squares, which I also used Stylecraft Special DK for, and I double stranded them. I took 2 strands of solid colors and mixed them in a basic granny square pattern. And I just love the vintage kind of boho look of these. And these were extremely meditative and relaxing. Sometimes, you know, coming home at the end of a day, you just want a small thing to do, but you want to feel like you're making progress. So I got that pattern from Jada in Stitches, the double-stranded granny. And, you know, I just love the way these turned out. One of my all-time favorite granny square patterns that Jada has also has on her YouTube channel is this granny square pattern. So I just love, there's so many sunflower granny square patterns out there, but I just love this one because it incorporates a really nice large center that definitely makes me feel like it's sunflowers. As you can see, I'm still weaving in my ends. But depending on the yarn that you use for that pattern and the size of the hook, you can get a very different look. This is Lion brand mercerized 24/7 cotton that I've used for this. Same pattern, Jada's pattern. And you can see by using a different hook size, you know, you can make coasters. If you make this really big, you can make a nice placemat. She has all that on her channel. I'll give you the link on that as well. And then if you use like an acrylic yarn, you're gonna get a different look, you know, puffier, softer. If you are using it for coasters or placemats though, you definitely want to use 100% cotton because acrylic will burn if you put anything hot on it, okay? So those are some of my favorite grannies. Then I took Jada's pattern and you know, you can go crazy, right? You can make with a really big hook and you know, chunky yarn, and you can just keep going and incorporate a granny square within a larger granny square. And then these are just some random granny squares that I've made. Some following a basic pattern like the Sunburst Granny Square where I incorporated variegated yarn with solid. Some just like really contrasting colors, you know, the blues and the greens and the whites really contrast nicely. And then a closed border. Again, just following YouTube patterns. This I just kind of did on my own. It's just a basic granny square pattern. And then again, a puffy granny. You know, when you have some nice puffy yarn and you don't know what to do with it, heck, why not make grannies? So they come in all sizes and shapes. You can get a totally different look depending on the yarn that you're using. That's what makes grannies so much fun. And the repetition is so relaxing in my opinion. I'd love to know what you think. If you find granny squares particularly relaxing, if you have some favorite granny square patterns that you find very calming or meditative, or if you don't like granny squares, I want to hear about that too. Anyway, it is International Granny Square Day, and I'm really grateful that you joined me today on my channel. And I hope that you have a wonderful day, and you know, maybe try making a granny square today. I will go ahead and put links down for my Instagram, and I hope to see you in future episodes. I'll try to put a video out every week. And if there are particular topics that you would like to talk about, let me know. All right, till then, thank you and take care.